Ready to step off the map from the most hidden alleyways to the stories nobody told you, Uncharted Alleyways begins now. Your definitive guide and travel podcast, culture, adventure, and the world as you've never heard it. Tune in, disconnect from the obvious, and come explore with us. Uncharted Alleyways, your next trip starts here.
So, in Amsterdam, there are roughly 1.2 bicycles for every single human being.
Which is just a massive amount of bikes.
Right. And get this, every single year, city workers have to fish about 15,000 of those bicycles out of the canals.
Oh, wow. 15,000.
15,000 every year. And, today we are taking that pristine mental postcard you probably have of this city.
Yeah, the one with the bright tulips and the quiet windmills.
Exactly, the romantic little stone bridges. We're tearing that postcard up. Today's deep dive is all about diving into the glorious, chaotic, and frankly fascinating reality of a metropolis that was built entirely on a swamp.
It really is a necessary demolition, I think, of our preconceived notions. Because when a place becomes, as visually iconic as Amsterdam, its own fame kind of becomes a barrier.
Yeah, the image we hold on to is just way too simple.
Right. And true travel-like, the kind that actually shifts your perspective rather than just, filling up your camera roll, is about observation. It's about answering a really difficult question. Like, how does a modern traveler engage authentically with a city that has basically become a victim of its own popularity?
And that is exactly the question we are tackling today. We're looking at this really fascinating excerpt from the travel series Uncharted Alleyways, which focuses pretty heavily on Amsterdam.
Yeah, it's a great source.
But really what we're doing is extracting a blueprint for how to experience pretty much any world-famous city.
Right. This isn't just a top 10 checklist.
Exactly. It's about examining the psychology of modern exploration. How to move, how to observe, and how to sort of peel back that tourist shell to find the living, breathing ecosystem underneath.
And according to the text, that process starts with a very literal shock to the system.
Oh, absolutely.
The source material basically drops us right outside Amsterdam Central, which is this massive historic railway station sitting right on the water at the edge of the central districts.
Just stepping out of those sliding doors is, it's an exercise in surviving total sensory overload.
It really is a wall of movement. You've got trams screeching on their rail.
Cars navigating these impossible intersections.
Yeah, and thousands of tourists dragging rolling suitcases over rough cobblestones. And if you look up, which the text strongly insists you do, you're hit with this striking, almost dizzying architecture.
Right. You see these incredibly tall, super narrow facades packed tightly together, topped with those elaborate decorative gables.
But what really messes with your head is that a lot of these buildings are physically leaning over the street.
Yeah, they really are. And, the leaning houses are such a perfect entry point into the actual mechanics of the city.
Because they aren't just old and crooked, right? There's some brilliant engineering at play there.
Exactly. Amsterdam is essentially built on marshland. So historically, to build those massive brick houses, they had to drive millions of wooden pilings deep into the wet mud just to create a foundation.
Right.
And over centuries, sure, some of those pilings settle and that causes a tilt, but a lot of them are actually built leaning forward entirely on purpose.
Okay, let's unpack this. Why would you intentionally build a house that looks like it's about to, tip over right onto a pedestrian?
Well, because the houses are so incredibly narrow, the staircases inside are practically vertical.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you couldn't physically carry a wardrobe or heavy sacks of trade goods up those stairs.
Yeah.
So they built a hoist hook into the gable at the very top of the house, and they tilted the entire facade forward.
That is wild.
Right. That way, when you haul a massive piece of furniture up by a rope, it just dangles clearly over the street and doesn't smash through your own lower floor windows on the way up.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
The architecture isn't just, quaint. It's a wildly practical solution to a geographical nightmare.
Yeah, exactly.
But while you're staring up at those hoist hooks, you still have to survive what is happening on the ground. Which brings us to the absolute, undisputed golden rule of this city: watch for the bicycles.
Yes, it really cannot be overstated. The bike lanes are the circulatory system of Amsterdam.
And if the bike lanes are a circulatory system, a tourist wandering into one to, check their phone is essentially a massive blood clot.
That is the perfect analogy. It's an active transit artery. You wouldn't step onto a moving airport walkway, stop dead in your tracks, and pull out a map.
Exactly. You'd cause a pileup.
But people do this in Amsterdam bike lanes constantly, and it completely disrupts the fluid dynamics of how the locals actually commute.
And that fluid dynamic is exactly what you need to observe. I mean, the cyclists know exactly where they're going, moving at top speed. You will hear bells ringing from angles you didn't even anticipate.
Yeah, they come out of nowhere.
Right, but the locals move through this apparent chaos effortlessly because they inherently understand the unwritten rules of flow. By actively staying out of the bike lanes and just, keeping your head on a swivel, you are taking your very first step toward assimilation. You are learning the rhythm of their daily life.
So you survive the gauntlet outside the station, you start to find that rhythm, and then your natural tourist instinct kicks in.
Of course it does.
The gravity of the city just pulls you toward the biggest, most famous landmark. In this case, that is Dam Square.
Right. Home to the Royal Palace.
Yeah, it's packed with tour groups, street performers, people taking photos. But the advice from Uncharted Alleyways is surprisingly blunt here. Take your photograph, appreciate the scale of the architecture, and then immediately walk away.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is that while it's the undeniable center of gravity, the text argues it's also a vacuum for authenticity. It advises leaving the center and crossing into the historic Canal Belt.
I have to admit, I struggle with this advice, honestly.
How so?
Well, if I am paying thousands of dollars for flights and hotels to visit Amsterdam, it feels almost irresponsible to intentionally skip the biggest, most iconic landmarks. I mean, how do you justify ignoring the very things the city is literally world famous for?
Well, the argument is that the famous spots are just the static shell. You aren't skipping them entirely, right? You are just refusing to let them dictate your entire experience.
Okay, that makes sense.
Think about the Canal Belt itself. Tourists view the canals as this wildly romantic, scenic backdrop. But structurally, they are machine. They are a 17th century feat of hydrology.
Right, they aren't just there to look pretty.
Exactly. The water is there for drainage, for managing the swamp, for city expansion, and for moving heavy trade goods.
So they engineered an entire aquatic grid just to make the land habitable and profitable.
Precisely. And today, the main arteries of that grid are clogged with massive tour boats. So to find the actual city, the living machine, you have to cross a bridge to a smaller, quieter canal.
And the moment you do that, the environment just shifts completely.
It really does. You see laundry hanging from a window. You notice houseboats with intricate little gardens growing on their decks.
Yeah, you see local unlocking their bicycle for work.
Exactly. You watch the city transition from a consumable destination into an actual functioning neighborhood.
And that transition leads us straight into the smaller capillary streets. The text highlights this area called the Negen Straatjes, or the 9 streets.
Oh yeah, tucked inside the Canal District.
Right. But instead of massive chain stores or, souvenir shops selling plastic tulips, it's packed with independent designers, vintage clothing, and local galleries. And moving from there into the Jordaan neighborhood, the advice shifts from where to walk to how to walk. The core philosophy here is to completely abandon your itinerary and allow yourself to get pleasantly lost.
Which, let's be honest, is incredibly difficult for the modern traveler to actually do.
Oh, it's so hard.
We are totally plagued by information overload and this deep-seated fear of missing out. We use our map apps to dictate every single footstep because we feel this intense pressure to optimize our vacation time.
Yeah, it's like we treat a holiday like a corporate supply chain. We want maximum efficiency. We route ourselves from point A to point B using the fastest possible path on our phones.
Exactly.
But by hyper-optimizing our routes like that, we mathematically eliminate the possibility of serendipity. I mean, it's like browsing a library without a specific book in mind.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. You cannot stumble upon a hidden courtyard or a tiny bakery making fresh bread if your eyes are glued to a blue dot on a screen telling you to turn left in 50 feet.
Exactly. Allowing yourself to get, quote-unquote, pleasantly lost isn't just a cute travel tip. It's a psychological reset. The source argues that giving yourself permission to simply watch a neighbor carry groceries home or to sit and watch a cat stare out a window is a radical act of slowing down.
It cures the anxiety of modern travel.
Yes, you stop trying to consume the city and you start existing within it.
And, walking aimlessly like that inevitably builds up a serious appetite.
Absolutely.
Which transitions us perfectly into the culinary culture. The source makes a brilliant point here. The first step to experiencing local cafe culture isn't even about eating.
Right. It is about observing.
Find a small cafe, sit by the window with a coffee for 30 minutes, and just watch the street. Watch the delivery vans navigate the narrow bridges. Watch the dogs. Just sit still.
Observation is the adventure, really. But the food is how you internalize the culture. The text details a traditional Dutch breakfast, which is fiercely practical, designed for a day of labor or walking.
Bread, cheese, eggs.
Right. But then we get to the absolute magic of the stroopwafel.
Oh, the stroopwafel. If you aren't familiar, a stroopwafel is two incredibly thin, slightly crispy waffle cookies bound together with a layer of sweet, sticky syrup in the middle.
But the mechanics of how you eat it are crucial.
Right. Yes. The text reveals this amazing pro tip. You don't just bite into it right away. You buy a fresh one and you rest it flat across the top of your hot coffee cup for about 2 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The steam rising from the coffee gently permeates the waffle and softens the syrup inside, turning it into this warm, melting perfection.
That creates a really powerful sensory memory, and that culinary exploration really deepens when you leave the center and head to a neighborhood like Pijp. It's a vibrant, energetic district where students, working families, and artists mix. And the crown jewel of Pijp is the Albert Cuyp Market.
Markets are the ultimate cultural barometer.
They really are. You see exactly what the locals are buying for their own kitchens.
Yeah.
You can find traditional raw Dutch herring or, massive wheels of aged farm cheese. But the market also reveals a much more complex layer of Amsterdam's identity, specifically the massive prominence of Indonesian food.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting for me. When I first think of the Netherlands, my brain immediately goes to Gouda cheese in those waffles.
Right, of course.
I definitely do not associate Amsterdam with complex, fiercely spicy Indonesian cuisine. How does that fit into a guide about authentic, local Dutch culture?
Well, it fits because authenticity is never static. It's an evolving ecosystem.
Okay.
The deep integration of Indonesian cuisine is a direct result of the historical colonial relationship between the Netherlands and Indonesia. It was driven by the Dutch East India Company and the spice trade.
Right.
And that history fundamentally reshaped the Dutch palate.
So it's not just a few restaurants sprinkled around, it's woven into the actual fabric of the society.
Completely. A perfect example of this is the risttafel, or rice table.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, but this isn't actually a traditional dish you would find historically in Indonesia. It was an elaborate colonial Dutch invention designed to showcase the sheer variety of spices and dishes they had access to across the Indonesian archipelago.
Oh, interesting.
You are served rice, accompanied by dozens of tiny, incredibly flavorful side dishes, meats, vegetables, sambals.
Wow.
And over generations, this hybrid dining experience basically became a staple of Dutch culture. Finding a great Indonesian restaurant in Amsterdam and having a risttafel is arguably as authentic a local experience as eating a piece of Dutch cheese.
That completely flips the definition of local food on its head, honestly. It proves that the culinary history of a city is written by the people who actually live there, over centuries of migration and trade.
Exactly.
So we fueled up on stroopwafels and this incredibly rich Indonesian food we need to digest.
Yes, both the food and the sensory input of the city itself.
Which brings us to the green spaces, specifically Vondelpark.
Vondelpark is this massive, sprawling green space near the museum district. And the directive from Uncharted Alleyways here is wondrously simple. Go there and do absolutely nothing.
Just find a patch of grass.
Yeah. You don't need a ticket, a reservation, or a schedule to sit and exist alongside the residents doing the exact same thing.
And while you sit there, you start to notice Amsterdam's true VIPs, which are the animals.
Oh, the animals, they really run the city.
They do. You see dogs casually riding in the wooden buckets of cargo bikes. You see swans aggressively navigating the historic waterways. And the cats, the text actually notes that Amsterdam cats act like they hold the deeds to the buildings.
They definitely have that attitude.
They pose in shop windows, they lounge on the warm brick of the canal walls, but there is a strict rule provided here.
Right.
Respect their boundaries.
Right.
Don't feed wildlife garbage, and if a cat doesn't explicitly invite your attention, just leave it alone. We are guests in their territory.
It's a really subtle reminder to be mindful of your impact on the local environment, whether that's human or animal. And once you've reset in the park, the text guides us toward Museumplein, the cultural heavy hitter of the city. This area houses the Van Gogh Museum and the Rijksmuseum, which holds centuries of Dutch history.
But there is a very stern warning for the ambitious traveler here. Do not try to see everything.
Yeah, we all know the trap. You treat a world-class museum like a competitive sport.
Exactly.
You try to sprint through 80 rooms of priceless art just so you can check a box and tell people back home that you saw it.
It gets an all-you-can-eat buffet instead of a rich, fine dining experience. But what is the actual mechanism at play here? Why is the source so adamant about slowing down inside the museum?
Because treating the Rijksmuseum like a checklist fundamentally strips the art of its power. The source argues that you should pick one wing, maybe even just one or two paintings, and really truly look at them.
Yeah.
Look at the fabrics the subjects are wearing, study the architecture in the background, analyze the way the light hits a merchant's face.
You are looking for the DNA of the city.
Exactly. 17th century Dutch master paintings are a cipher. They tell you exactly how that society viewed itself. Its wealth, its relationship with the sea, its religious tensions.
Wow.
Understanding those details in the paint provides a foundational historical context for the very streets you are going to walk on when you leave the building. The art is literally a mirror, reflecting the mindset that engineered the canals and built the leaning houses.
It changes the city from a pretty backdrop into a readable text. It's amazing.
It really is.
So we've decoded the high culture, we've eaten the history, we've survived the bike lanes, but this deep dive has to touch on the grounded, practical realities of traveling to a place this popular.
Yeah, because Amsterdam is undeniably expensive.
It is. And managing those logistics is a massive part of the mental load of travel.
Well, the practical advice here is aimed at elevating the experience, not just, saving a few euros. We all know to avoid the giant laminated photo menus or aggressive staff trying to pull you into a restaurant.
Right. That's Travel 101.
Exactly. But the source pushes deeper. It suggests managing your budget by staying well outside the main Canal Belt in neighborhoods like Oud West or Amsterdam Noord.
Okay.
But the critical piece of advice is to prioritize your transit connections. A cheap hotel is entirely useless if it isolates you from the city's flow and forces you into expensive, time-consuming cab rides.
It's about maintaining your access to that circulatory system we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
And speaking of traversing the city, there is the reality of the red light district. It is world famous, it is entirely unique, but the text offers a very specific philosophical approach to visiting it.
Yeah, it reminds the reader that this is not an amusement park. Human beings actually live, sleep, and work in that neighborhood.
Which forces a shift in how we behave.
Yes, the source is explicitly clear on this. Be intensely respectful, never take photographs of the workers, and treat the area with the same baseline dignity you would your own neighborhood.
When you aggregate all of these rules, watch out for the fluid dynamics of the bikes, don't hyper-optimize your map app, don't sprint through the museum, respect the workers, don't pet the angry cats. It sounds like a lot of pressure.
It can feel that way, yeah.
So what does this all mean? It feels like you have to be constantly on guard to avoid being a quote-unquote bad tourist. Doesn't all that hyper-awareness ruin the spontaneity and the joy of taking a vacation?
Well, it might seem that way on the surface, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, being mindful actually creates the joy.
Really? How so?
When you treat a place like the Red Light District as a living, breathing neighborhood rather than a themed attraction, you stop being a consumer. You become an engaged participant in their ecosystem.
Oh, I see. You stop demanding that the city perform for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
The anxiety of travel usually comes from trying to extract value from a place, trying to get the perfect photo or see the most things. When you accept the rules of the city, you surrender that anxiety. Respecting the local realities is precisely what separates a traveler who is transformed by a journey from a tourist who merely relocated for a few days.
That completely reframes the effort. You are participating in the city, not just consuming it.
Exactly.
And that brings us to the ultimate piece of advice from Uncharted Alleyways, the local secret for capping off your day.
Oh, this is my favorite part.
Right. When evening arrives, the canals light up, the bridges glow against the dark water, and the natural instinct for most visitors is to chase the busy, chaotic nightlife in the center. But the secret is to do the exact opposite.
You step away from the noise. The text advises finding a quiet canal neighborhood in the evening. You buy some simple snacks or a casual dinner. You find a wooden bench right by the water, and you just sit as the sun goes down.
You just sit and you observe.
Yeah.
You listen to the hum of the city settling. You hear the bicycle bells ringing faintly in the distance. You watch the warm yellow lights flicking on inside the windows of those tall, leaning houses. You watch the small boats drift quietly under the bridges. And you let the city slow down around you. It is a moment of profound connection that you will never, ever find on a top 10 things to do list, which is exactly why it is the most valuable part of the trip.
It is the ultimate culmination of everything the text advocates for. And, it is worth noting that the source actually teases a part 2 to this journey, which focuses on Amsterdam Noord.
Oh, right, the modern, industrial, creative side of the city across the water.
Exactly, looking at the NDSM wharf and contemporary houseboat life. It is a vital reminder that no matter how much you think you have decoded a city, there is always another layer. The ecosystem is always expanding.
There is always more to learn. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the hidden mechanics of Amsterdam today.
It's been quite the journey.
It has. But before we let you go, we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. The entire core philosophy we unpacked today is about tearing up the postcard. It's about stepping away from the famous, hyper-optimized landmarks to observe the quiet, everyday rhythms of local life.
It is the immense value of allowing yourself to get pleasantly lost.
Exactly. So here's the question for you to take with you. If you took this exact same philosophy, if you turned off your map app, abandoned your daily optimized route, and allowed yourself to get pleasantly lost in the city or town that you currently live in.
Well, what would you find?
Right. What hidden architecture, unwritten rules, or quiet everyday routines would you suddenly notice for the very first time?
We so easily become blind to the magic of our own home when we stop actively observing it.
So true. So go out there, get off your own mapped out routine, and tear up the postcard of your own town. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep observing, and we will catch you next time.